Posting feverishly without getting results? Fitness professionals' social media efforts generally fall into one of two categories: definitely working out or definitely failing. If you're spending money for somebody else to do your social media, or you're spending time doing it yourself, it's expensive to get zero results. With more ears and eyes on social media than ever, this is for you. Any one of these 7 fitness professionals' social media marketing mistakes can hurt you. Fixing any one of them is definitely a step in the right direction. Let's dive in. And before we do, this episode is brought to you by the Flipping 50 Fitness Specialist 2.0. It includes the 10-month branding, influencing, and positioning support for growing your fitness business with the help of social media. You get it all, including the hormone balancing fitness prescription you need for working with women in menopause. So if that's your jam, that is the demographic that you're targeting. Potentially, you're already working with them, but I can help you get better results. And I can help you take those results, turn that into even better social media marketing. I'm going to give you the link to learn more. We're open for enrollment, but only during December. So once we close, we're taking a group through the program, and we start January 14th. So you have a little bit more time to get in if you're listening to this right now. If you're not, get on the wait list because we'll open up another class. We want to take everybody through all together because you will benefit, my friend, even more than just my expertise in helping you learn how to grow my business. In the last 8 years, I will speed up and accelerate your progress, spare you the mistakes that I made. But looking back, before I handed in that letter of resignation, I thought I was doing pretty well. Now, I've increased my monthly revenue as of last month by 8 times what I was making now. And I'm in charge of my own time. I work when I work best, and I call the shots. And that kind of freedom is priceless. I'll link to that in the show notes. Okay, let's dive in. 7 fitness professionals' social media marketing mistakes, and of course, the fix. Because what kind of podcast would this be if I only pointed out what might be going wrong? Okay, number 1, posting before you have a strategy. So close your eyes for a minute, or maybe not, depending on what you're doing. Imagine a pee-wee soccer league, the 4 and the 5-year-olds. And if you don't have kids of your own, you may have coached, maybe you've got nieces or nephews, or you've just watched this happen. A 5-year-old, right, cares more probably about the treats, who's bringing them, than the minutes that they play. But inevitably, at any game, one kid will finally get the ball and run with it to score the perfect goal for the other team. They've been running in the wrong direction. And if you are consistently posting without results, you too may be running in the opposite direction. And here's the deal. Now, you're helping your competition directly? Not so much. So that's not the problem. But you are using time and energy where it's not paying off. So here you go. Before you post, what's the reason for this specific post? And I want that question, the answer related to how is this tied to your customer's journey? What's your Hansel and Gretel plan for getting home, right? So Hansel and Gretel didn't even know it, but they were dropping breadcrumbs as they went away, and they followed them, or thought that they would, following them home. But you need to have the same kind of strategy. So anything that you're wasting time, money, and energy on, or putting time, money, and energy, investing it on, you want to make sure that, okay, there's a next step. There's a reason why I put this out there. Now, sometimes your steps might be simply to engage, but you should be sure that you have a clear next step. So if you're engaging, Gary Vanderchuck calls this jab, 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 cross, right? So you give, and you might just be engaging and collecting information and jabbing. And then you cross by asking them to take the next step with you. And that might be just a comment or a like or a share, or tag a friend in the comments who needs to see this today. Or it might be, if this resonates with you, they take a content upgrade, which is what it's called when you say, I have a free guidebook that might be really helpful. And you put that at the end of your post, not at the beginning. You don't lead with it until you have a really big following. And you only want to do that very occasionally. So you don't put that guidebook and say, here's a freebie, because everybody knows that they're opting in and they're going to get slammed with emails. And nobody wants to do that. But if you've gained their trust already, then slip that into the notes down below. If you want to take the next step and you really want to see, these specific strategies, here's what you do. Don't be afraid to give away some of the content right in that post. Dive into it. So think about, what is your strategy? How are you using social media to ultimately, over here on one side, you've got, this is what you're selling. This is it. And then this is your free gift. And then this is your social media. How do these things relate? So if somebody read your post, how are they thinking, feeling, or going to act differently so they take the next step with you? That's having a strategy about how you'll use social media. Okay, mistake number 2, posting without a message and mission. All right, now strategy is one thing. So literally thinking, how am I going to use a GPS to get my customer where I want them to go? That's strategy. But your message and your mission is really underneath even the strategy. So you've got to think, what do you want your listener or viewer or reader, depending on what kind of content you're putting out there, to do, to think, or to feel? And if you don't know that, we got to go back and really think about, what's your mission statement? Like, in everything you do, what is the theme that you want them to feel 5 years from now because of you, 10 years from now because of you? Why do you want that? I mean, the why behind your reason for wanting them to do that. What's the big message that you want for them ultimately? Fitness professionals' social media posts should be in alignment with the message and the stand that you take everywhere. So it can't be the same as every other fitness professional. And if it can, go back, honestly, read your last 7 posts. Could any other fitness professional say that? Could any other fitness professional use it? Then really it's generic. So how are you standing out? What do you stand for? What do you stand against? All right, listen, in 2020, we've been presented with a number of challenges that we may never have thought would polarize our audience, but have. From masks to vaccines to quarantine to racism, there have been reasons to address these things that may have been listed in your style guide as never talks about that. Don't bring it up, just like politics and religion. Okay, by the way, side note, if you don't have a style guide, you need one for this very reason. It will force you, when you create a style guide, to become a better marketer. It will force you to know what your message is and it isn't, in a way that everybody that you work with, maybe you're not working with anybody yet, but you will, because you're going to grow and you can't do it all. And they will know, as well as you, clearly what's in and out of bounds to talk about. Learn more about style guide creation, and I'll put a link in the show notes so that you can go and start working on even your rough draft. Number 3, missing hashtag strategies in Instagram. So listen, I'll tell you, I'm on Instagram. I have probably one of the most peewee smallest accounts, but those people that are on my peewee little baby account are engaged. That's important. And, I'm there because I'm there so that when my audience members come in growing numbers. Those women who are between 45 and 70, when they get there and they're really engaging and more interactive and they kind of get it a little bit more, like we get Facebook, we become much more comfortable with that. But not everybody in my audience is even there or wants to be. But if you're on a platform, you've got to know how to use the platform in the unique way that platform is used. And I'm going to mention a book that I wrote. It's not brand new, and yet it's about social media. And when I was approached about writing that book about social media, I said to the publisher and good friend, I said, it's going to be outdated as soon as we write it, even while I'm writing it before it publishes. And he said, I know that's true, but the one we've got right now is not really good. So we need something. And are you willing to do it? So when I set out to write it, I said, I'll do this if I can create it so it's more evergreen, so that not just what's true right now as I was writing it, but what questions to continue to ask, like what's possible, so that you can continue to ask those in the future. That book talks about every one of the platforms, who is on it, which hasn't dramatically changed, but also some strategies and questions you should be asking and how you set your profiles up that work together. Reading that book, and it's fairly thin, will make you a better overall marketer. So I'll link to that in the show notes. It was published by Healthy Learning a few years ago. We then did a follow-up book in conjunction with the American Council on Exercise. However, COVID may have interrupted the publication of that. So even I need to check on that one. But I do say, I guess, as a foundation for letting you know that there's some credibility in that the American Council on Exercise and my publisher together both said you, meaning me, are the one we want to co-author this and to write it. So there you have it. I will link you to the probably less than $20 book that might be a great read for you. And by the way, don't go get that. If you're in our Flipping 50 Fitness Specialist 2.0, I'll send you that book, by the way. Okay, so that missing hashtag strategy, fitness professional social media mistakes on Instagram are many, but the biggest ones involve hashtags. If you're not aware of, say, the number of hashtags that you should be using on your posts, or the place you want to put them and don't, and the range of hashtag popularity to use based on the size of your current following, you're wasting your time. Hashtags are what help you get seen. Being consistent is about doing the right thing consistently, right? You want to be that little soccer player going down to the right goal. If you want to get in on some of the secrets that make your Instagram not just grow, but your following grow it authentically with people who want what you're selling, then it's part of the Flipping 50 Fitness Specialist program. And I will lead you right to my experts and who I follow. Next up is not supporting specific others and engaging. So notice that I said specific. So it's not just supporting other people and engaging on other accounts. Specifically, you want to create a list. Social media is meant to be social. So you can use social media to create your relationships that you don't have yet but want. And give to others. Identify 100 people. And if that's, way too many, start with 20. 20 people or 20 businesses, accounts who are doing what you want to do or related to what you want to do in a complementary way. Follow them. Take time regularly to comment and post and DM them. Direct message, by the way. That should be as much a part of what you're doing and not randomly doing. So as much as your posting is. List these people out specifically. If you're tempted to copy them when you go there. Because, once you list the people out that you want to like their account, you want to start posting, you want to start putting comments and likes and emojis on their account, maybe DMing them and saying this was so great. Don't be going down that rabbit hole where they posted something really cool, they got a lot of likes, so you're going to mimic it. You've got to be you. Don't post somebody else's content. Post your content. How do you uniquely interpret something? Be you. Don't be somebody else because they're already taken. All right. Don't, watch what they're doing. Notice how larger accounts post. So, first of all, they don't post their freebies, really. I mean, you almost never see it, but you'll see it after they write a long post down low in the comments. If you want more on that, you can get it right here at the link in my bio. It's very subtle, but it's a call to action almost every time. They post content that organically connects to their freebies. You have to first engage. If you haven't gotten eyeballs, lots of eyeballs, increasing eyeballs on your content, back up. Connect. Look at your insights. What's working and what's not. So before you start sharing all your freebies, start, please, just getting more engagement. And that will begin with hashtags. So back up one step and reread that. Next up is neglecting to use your insights. Insights are free on every platform. And sure, you can pay to upgrade to get more insight information. But if you're not even using your insights at all, start there. Fitness professional social media mistakes center around this one on every single platform. Not using insights is like ignoring your friends when they call. So what's going to happen? Eventually, they're going to stop calling, right? Fitness owners and managers have maybe cultivated this bad habit when they didn't know enough about social media and turned the process over entirely to a young member of their team that they assumed, quote unquote, know more about social media than I do. The only way that you can create more effective messages that resonate with your audience is to measure what matters. Set up a weekly weigh-in, right? Like you would do with a client. Weigh, measure body composition, and start looking objectively at whether you increased or you decreased engagement, which posts, what type of posts, even what time and what content works. Do more of what works and do less of what doesn't. So yes, absolutely, it takes some time to get real traction. But if you're still posting to a handful of people after months of posting in relatively the same way, it's time to change your strategy. Next mistake is forgetting how your customer feels. Listen, preaching doesn't work. Teaching works sometimes, but talking to people works, and listening works best. Are you ever asking questions? So lead with a question. Make the question your post. So often, fitness professionals' social media posts probably feel condescending to your clients or potential clients. Imagine how they feel and post based on that. I mean, when someone is frustrated, they're in despair, what they're doing isn't working, they don't need or want to read a post about getting steps in, right? I mean, unless you're telling them exactly that getting more steps equates, and it's been proven to support weight loss, they won't draw that parallel. So you've got to tell them, listen, there's a study that says if you do this consistently, you will lose weight. This is what we're seeing. Here's the evidence. But don't make them do the homework. Do the legwork from them. That's a valuable post. Maybe that listener, that frustrated person, needs to read a post about how hard it can be to start when you feel like the road is long. Tell a story about when you felt that way, because then you'll be more relatable. And if you look super fit and thin and your ideal customer is not, you need to relate to them somehow. They have to be able to see themselves in you. And you can't be so far down the road in their eyes, or they won't be able to follow you. So that's not to say you have to have been fat or out of shape to be a great social media marketer in fitness, but you do need to be able to relate struggle to them. So maybe it was in starting your business. That's actually where I began. Um, and then, ironically, who knew? But I did last year. I gained 10 pounds as I crossed over into menopause and then was training for an Ironman. Became a great story that I didn't know I really wanted to tell. And let me just tell you, I didn't. But when you're through the other side and you figure out the challenge that they too are dealing with, that's a story that you can tell. All right. And here you go. 7 out of these 7 mistakes. Not telling your why. And I alluded to this a little bit ago, but literally, you could be a plumber, a teacher, a lawyer, or a doctor. Why are you a personal trainer or a health coach? Fitness professionals' social media accounts are often void of the backstory. And that's like getting to a movie 10 minutes late or not reading the text on the screen at the beginning of the movie so you know the significance of the story. I can relate to that because just last week, my son and girlfriend were here, and at the end of the evening, we were watching a Tarzan movie, and I was admittedly multitasking on my laptop. And my son rewound and he said, "Are you reading this?" Because he knew much of the movie it would have had less meaning to me if I hadn't read those first few screens. And it feels like that for your clients, your viewers, or your readers, if you don't tell the backstory. So periodically, you have to share your story again, like who you are, why you're doing what you're doing. You'll notice this happen if you watch accounts. So maybe once a month when you've got a lot of new people coming on, and even if you don't, it's a good idea to do this. Introduce yourself again and say, hey, there's a lot of new folks here recently. And so just want to introduce myself. Or, if you've never done this, say, look, hey, I realize you're here and you may not even know who I am or why I am here. So tell them who you are. Tell them your rags to riches story. When did you struggle? Because they're struggling right now looking for an answer to something. The story that makes you relatable and unique, that's the one you want to share. What is it? What is it that makes you cry, cringe, sing, dance, and celebrate? They want to know all those things, but I will tell you that they first really do want to know what makes you cry and cringe. What's at the baseline of emotion for you? All right, there you have it. Fitness professionals, social media marketing mistakes, why they hurt you, and how to fix them. I'm going to link in the show notes to all the mentions in this podcast. That was the Flipping 50 Fitness Specialist 2.0 and the masterclass coming up this Thursday, if you're still in December as you're listening to this. And the blueprint and or the blueprint for creating your style guide. I walk you through it, the things to write down. And it's as simple as starting your own Word document in response to each of the things that I give you, so that you personally have your own kind of roadmap. Like, these are where I color inside these lines. I don't talk about this. And you get very focused, and your marketing overall, but specifically social media, will improve. And it also makes it really easy for you to hand off to somebody else, because eventually, girlfriend, guy, you are going to outgrow the ability to do your own social media. It's amazing if you're doing it for yourself now, because you will know what to ask, what to measure, what to say to that social media person to know if it's being effective or not. I'm also going to link to the social media book that I wrote in coordination with Healthy Learning. It's less than $20, but I would say this, it's priceless, and it's a great review about why you're doing any of your marketing, from email marketing to your website, how it's related, and how to think very differently about social media. So you've got content that lives on your website, and you may count the content that's videos in your YouTube, but social media's job is to be the wheels on that content bus. It's not to start with social media. And there you have it. I'd love to hear from you and love to see you in the masterclass, answering your questions about how right now during this pandemic is such an opportunity that we will never, ever have again. And you can make the most of it. What are you waiting for? The world needs you right now more than ever.